Philipp Wittmann from the Wittmann winery in Rheinhessen. So we are based in Westhofen. That's a little village with 3,000 citizens in the southern part of Rheinhessen. But it's a village with a lot of history in wine. So in Westhofen, it's one of the biggest wine growing villages in the region with more than 700 hectares of vineyards. Very traditional wineland. And luckily amazing vineyard size with fantastic possibilities to grow high-end qualities. It's family business at home, so it means I'm in fact in the 11th generation in my family growing wine at this place. So it's something special for me also to follow, and it would be fantastic if my children will go the same way, but I don't know yet, they are just too small. It's a story of growing mainly white wine varieties. Riesling is the main variety with, let's say, more than 75% of the vineyards are planted with Riesling, followed by the different Burgundy varieties, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, a little bit of Pinot Gris. And that's it, in fact. And yeah, that's what we are doing. For me, it was when I grew up. I was crystal clear that I will follow in the history, going to be a winemaker, and it's my passion. I love my job, producing wine. I love to be outside in the vineyards, in the nature. Working in the vineyards is amazing for me. But of course, also the winemaking, the cellar work is a very passionate thing for me. And at the end, also all around wine business, traveling, tastings, communication are very, very interesting things. And I personally really love this mix of all these three different things. So for me, it's the best job in the world I could do. And if someone would have asked me what I would do if I won't be a winemaker, I don't know. It's maybe professional soccer player, but unfortunately I'm not good enough, you know. We grow on around 40 hectares, and it's basically everything is around my village of Westhofen. So I could see my vineyards in a let's say 1.5 hour drive. I could see every vineyard, which is a big advantage for taking decisions. The soils are based on limestone underground, which is very important. At the end, the limestone, the chalkiness, is a kind of the DNA for our wines. We usually have clayish topsoils. Some soils are also loamy soils, but it's always influenced by the limestone, which is very important. There are 4 different vineyard sites which are named as Grand Cru's, as Große Lage, in the association of the VDP. It's a private vineyard classification system where we have Grand Cru, Premier Cru, and village and regional wines for sure. So that's the way we name our wines. And maybe the most famous Riesling I produce is the Morstein Riesling. Morstein is a very special site because it's very clayish, a very cold clayish topsoil, and you have a really rocky underground, intensely limestone driven, and also some sources in the underground, so there's always enough water. So we easily come through the dry summers seasons with the Morstein vineyards, and it's a wine which has a lot of tension and refreshing aromatics, very pure, very clear, ideally crystal clear like spring water in the idea for me. And there are other interesting vineyard sites. The neighbor side of Morstein is called Brunnenhäuschen. It's very much comparable to Morstein. There's one unique thing, and this is the color of the soil is red. So there's a lot of iron in the soil. This makes a difference to the Morstein. And then there are 2 other sites called Kirchspiel and Aulerde, which are close together in neighborhood, next to next, close to the village of Westhofen. And here we could say Aulerde is interesting because it's the oldest wines we grow. Its vineyard is planted directly after Second World War, so end of the 40s. And it's the warmest side where you get very refreshing yellow fruit-driven aromatics. And in Kirchspiel you always have a kind of spiciness because it's a little bit cooler place. It's east-faced and again very limestone-driven underground, and so always a kind of spiciness in taste. So 4 different unique personalities, and I'm so happy to see every year again that you could see these different personalities when you taste the new vintage. It's just a true story. It's not a marketing story about terroir. It's really uniqueness in best way, and therefore I like it. I grew up at our estate when my father changed to organic farming end of the 80s. And of course I also have learned my job in conventional wineries, but I always followed the idea of my father going into the organic direction. And so of course this means a lot of handwork in the vineyard and everything around. Yeah, with these vintage which getting more and more extreme. So the first I remember for me which was challenging was the vintage 2000, where we have an early season and then we get a very rainy but warm harvest season. And so a lot of varieties, a lot of selection was very difficult, was extreme. And then there was the vintage 2003, very hot and dry summer, a really high ripeness of the fruits at the end. And so very challenging for the texture of a cool climate variety like Riesling. So with these 2 vintages we say, okay, maybe we have to adapt our vineyards to this more extreme situation. So maybe there is a tool to bring a better growing balance in the vineyard. And for us this was biodynamic farming. So from 2004 on we started going in the direction of biodynamic farming. We got a, let's say, a kind of a teacher, a guy from California who has helped us to come into the special things. And I visited together with Steffen Christmann from Christmann in Pfalz and Hans-Jörg Repolz, also a colleague from the Pfalz. We visited Nicolas Joly, having discussions with him, and we just started open-minded going into things. And from 2004 to now, we developed our own way of biodynamic working. For me, it's always a question about growing balance. This is the most important thing for me. So therefore, all the work on the soil is very important. So the compost management, producing our own compost and using it and bringing a vital grow in the vineyards. Of course, you have these very small differences you could work on to bring the balance in a better way. And at the end, the goal is producing healthy and ripe fruits. And I could say nowadays, after 20 years of biodynamic farming, I do have longer hanging times of healthy fruits in my vineyards than in the previous time. So we reached it in a way to get better. I think the Wittmann wines are always very pure in the style, and maybe a little bit more complicated when they are young, because they are more closed in the beginning. So it's because our wines need time for development. So I'm not very much focused on getting fruit into the wine, because I personally think in our region, in our climate conditions, we get masses of fruit from natural facts. So it's not a need to support fruit flavors in our winemaking. I support to get the texture of the vineyard in the wine, and so therefore I'm interested in the length of the wines. And of course I always think about what can I do to bring to get everything out of the fruits, which shows characteristics of the vineyards, without without losing elegance. Because with phenolics and Riesling, it's always a little bit a dangerous thing. So Riesling is a very elegant and a very puristic variety. And if you're working too intensely with the fruits in the winemaking process, you get more phenolics, and then you destroy everything which makes Riesling great. So therefore we have to handle everything very careful. I personally believe not in botrytis driven fruits, so I would like to pick perfect healthy fruits. So we select a lot, we do everything in the vineyard we can to get perfect ripeness and healthiness, and then we handle very careful everything, so it's hand-picked, selected on a sorting table, softly crushed, very gentle pressed, and then natural fermentation in big wooden casks. Easy system. I'm looking for the identity, the personality of the wine, and usually I would say it's for me everything about origin. So I would like to feel the origin of a wine. I would like to understand where it's coming from and why it's tasting like this. So soil type, climate conditions, subclimate conditions, specialties, of course variety, but it's not the main thing for me. And I like to drink wines which reflecting these story of origin, and I also like to produce wines which reflect it in the best possible way.